Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, the overviews and the previews for each sign. That is in this video for Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing transit it is. We've got a big 3 years to look forward to. In December of 2017 is when Saturn is going to move into a brand new sign, move into the sign of Capricorn for a nice long stay, the better part of the next 3 years. Now, Pluto's actually been here already since 2008. So this has marking with Saturn moving into this part of the sky. This marks in a sense some sense of structure, but also limitation coming to the same area of life that Pluto is already in. There are going to be certain high moments of this transit that we are going to talk about. And of course, 2020, which a lot of astrologers already have their eyes on for big changes ahead. So let's take it one step at a time. The sign of Capricorn speaks to a few different things. It speaks to things like social structures, corporations. It speaks to success and authority. It speaks to ambition as well. Now, when the sign of Pluto moved into this part of the sky, we had a few very interesting things happen for us as a collective. There was a desire for a rebirth of sorts, and part of that desire came about because we saw part of what wasn't working. So that was, of course, Pluto moving into the sign of Capricorn, and we had a lot of financial crisis issues show up, which can happen with Pluto moving into this part of the sky. Well, Saturn is a different type of energy. Saturn is about limitations, it's about restriction, and it's about keeping things a more traditional way. Saturn doesn't like change very much, likes to hold on to the way things have been. And with Saturn moving over this point in mid-December, will move over the same point that Pluto was at when we had these financial crisis issues show up for us as a collective. I think Saturn is going to come along and say, okay, what have we learned? What remains? What is truly strong? What are the structures that are held into place now? And how is it working? This is going to be a reality check of sorts, which Saturn likes to be for us. Saturn likes to be a reality check. Saturn likes to invites us to, and sometimes not so easily, but can sometimes feel like a challenge, but invites us ultimately to honor the physical realm. That's what I think is the higher understanding of what Saturn is about. It's about understanding that we are spiritual beings, yes, but there's this human element to what we are doing here. And there are certain limitations and restrictions to being incarnated right now. And it asks us to look at that in a particular area. So here we are going to be, as a collective, sort of examining how far we have come. Pluto right now is sort of at the halfway mark, a little over the halfway mark of its extended cycle through the sign of Capricorn. And so this is going to be a reality check for us as well. Like, what have we learned? How far have we come? What remains strong and steady and sure? Where were choices made that were good? Where were choices made that really were not so good? And what now? This is going to be that invitation moment where we get to evaluate. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is about holding on to the way things have been. And with that comes an understanding that there's very likely going to be with this, and I'm just going to put it out there. This is how the symbol suggests and how the symbol speaks. But just looking at Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn, very likely this is going to be an affirmation of, people who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, so to say, an affirmation of corporations and what it is that they're doing and the importance of them, the importance of the social structures that we have and what does that mean, what industry means, and experts as well. This is going to be a greater reliance on experts and touted experts, if you will. The sign of Capricorn also has to do with credentials. So it's like what you've earned, what you've stated, what you've sort of established. And there's going to be this greater emphasis for us as a collective of looking at credentials as we move towards societal change. Now, if you think back, right, Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius, for example, which is what we're coming out of now. Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius. Well, Sagittarius has to do with things like higher education. It has to do with cultures and international cultures and borders. And it was over the course of the last 3 years, the better part of the last 3 years, that we saw a lot of things change in this regard, where we saw sort of this social mood that wasn't about expansion, right? It wasn't about growing things and having things sort of opening up borders. It was kind of the opposite in most places. In most places we saw people sort of affirming national identities, affirming the borders that were there. We saw border control methods evolve as well over the course of the last 3 years. And also this idea of national identities and what that means and how to protect that, which is actually a big part of what Saturn is. Saturn does want to protect by creating a containment, by creating limitations. So that was part of the conversation that we were having as a collective, and choices that a lot of countries were making were coming from that Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius place. But the thing is, all energy changes. It always changes. That's the only sure thing. Like if you're having a really great space, enjoy it fully, because you know that the energy will change. The mood changes. The spirit of a people will go through changes and phases as well. And Saturn is one of the strongest indications of what the spirit of a people is going to be in a given time. So having Saturn now move into the sign of Capricorn, there's going to be a greater desire to have strong corporations, a greater desire to have strong social structures, a greater desire to see people who are not necessarily relying on external compassion or help, but rather are like doing it for themselves. People who are ambitious and willing to do anything for it, and people who are pursuing a path that ultimately is more about self-reliance and self-will and determination. These are going to be the things that we are highlighting more as a collective. Now, a couple of things come to mind as I look at this sky, and I'm reminded of a few other astrologers who I know and love in the world, have said. One thing that was very interesting to me was Stephen Forrest. Of course, the legendary Stephen Forrest spoke recently about how there is a dark side to every energy, right? There's a dark side to a more conservative energy. There's a dark side to a more liberal energy. And so right now with Pluto moving through the sign of Capricorn, we're getting a lot of insights into what the dark side of more conservative policies can be, right? Conservative approaches can be, because Pluto does show us our own dark side. And pretty soon we get to 2024, Pluto will change signs. Pluto will move into the sign of Aquarius, and that will show us and begin a cycle of showing us more the dark side of more progressive policies as well. Now, Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn, I actually see this as amplifying some of that. Now, I am saying this with absolute non-attachment, right? I don't want to make this about anything I think or anything I feel. I think that's part of an astrologer's internal work to do, is that we have to strive to be honest with ourselves, because ultimately it is us that is bringing ourselves to the sky, and that determines a lot of interpretation. But having said that, I mean, I look at this symbol, I look at the fact that in the summer of 2017, we are going to have a few very interesting things happening. So Uranus is going to move into an earth sign. It's going to move into a brand new sign. And that's a whole other discussion in itself, which I will be having with you as we go along, as I'm always here, of course. But this is going to be really big on a financial front. This is going to be really big in terms of a revolution, if you will, where it comes to matters of finances, where it comes to how we're paying for things, where it comes to how we're earning money as well. We're going to see a revolution, a slow revolution over the course of 7 years of that transit of Uranus moving through the sign of Taurus. We are going to see that. And as I said, I will talk about that in the future in depth, of course. But as it relates to Saturn moving into Capricorn, in the summer, we're going to have this like almost trine. It is a trine. I see it as a supremely harmonious conversation between Uranus and Saturn. But it's an extended conversation because it gets really, really, really close. but doesn't exactly meet in terms of preciseness, but it gets close enough to be a very important dance that is going to define much of the first year of this transit. And so this says to me that there is a spirit of possibility. There is a spirit of promise. There is a spirit of how things can change and how Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn can be a good thing all around, especially where it comes to prosperity for us individually and as a collective as well. So we want to look out for that. But again, Saturn does emphasize more doing things yourself, having willpower, having determination. These are qualities that are going to be emphasized during this dance, particularly in 2018 is when they're actually having that connection. Once we get into 2019, that is when Saturn is going to speak in harmony, start dancing in harmony, and have precise moments in the conversation with Neptune. So here things get a little bit more generous, right? Here there's a more hopeful spirit. Here there's a spirit that has to do with bringing a sense of meaning, a sense of spirituality to what is happening more on a level of our social structures, of our success, of our ability to achieve success in the world or not, and what's really happening there and how to correct that. So I think there will be sort of a collective mood, if you will, where there's going to be more generosity displayed, especially where it comes to what's happening on a level of those who we hold up as particularly successful and what it is that they're doing. And then we get to 2020. And this is really big. Like I said, a lot of astrologers are already talking about it. So now I'm going to quote another astrologer, my friend Nico over at Scarlet Moon on YouTube. I've interviewed him on my channel before. He really is a lovely person. And he recently shared something that really helped me a lot to put into words what I feel. He said that he doesn't want to use the possibility of something challenging happening or something difficult or something painful. He doesn't want to use that in order to gain views, right? Like it's just not worth it to him. And I really did meditate on that. It meant a lot to me that he shared that, because I realized my interpretations always really focus on the more positive elements of how the sky can be revealed. And there's a reason for that. There's a few reasons for that. So one reason is because I really believe that astrologers up until very recently in human history, very recently, not even 250 years now, it was very recently in human history that the astrologers were the intermediaries of the gods. They gave voice to the gods. And I believe that as a collective, we still have that somewhere within us, like sort of in our collective unconscious. We still may see the astrologer as playing that role. And that carries a lot of responsibility, and the ethical part of that is incredibly important to me. And the other part of it is that I realize I cannot be at peace with myself if I am focusing more on the negative things can happen and thinking that there may be a lot of people out there, because thousands and thousands of people watch me every month. But to think that there are people out there who are anticipating something really bad could happen, right? Like recently I did a weekly overview and I looked at how Uranus was standing across the sky from Mars, and there are so many ways to understand that energy. There's so many ways to use that energy. We know ourselves as human beings so differently now. And there are a lot of ways to use that energy, right? Like personal realizations, epiphanies, like a myriad of ways. It's really truth, right? But then there's other ways that this energy can show up, right? Accidents can happen, right? Erratic behavior leading to injury, let's say. These are very textbook ways of looking at that particular celestial conversation. And I thought, if I say that, if I share that, how many people out there are going to be walking around waiting for an accident, waiting for something to happen that may not even happen, because they're already, if you're focusing the energy in a different way, it doesn't have to be realized in a way that is very painful. It's like if you're listening to the messages that life is giving you, if you're listening to the whispers and the conversations, life doesn't have to hit you over the head, doesn't have to kick you in the butt to get you to realize something about yourself and about your life. And so that to me becomes very important. Now I look at this, how that all fits into what's happening with the sky now. is that we are going to have Pluto meeting Saturn and meeting Jupiter. This is happening in 2020. This is a really big deal, right? And actually, Saturn and Jupiter are going to start their dance already as we get to the end of 2019, but it really is going to be 2020 that is the strong year of this very concentrated energy that is set to take place. Now, there are a few ways to understand this energy. It is, and it does have something to do with rebirth and restructuring. It can represent dramatic moments as well. I think of it more as a beginning. So the beginning of what can, if we're not paying attention, reveal itself to, 20 years from now, when Saturn stands across the sky from Pluto, can reveal itself to be especially dramatic and creating, a lot of chaos for ourselves and as a collective as well. So here's the thing. The other way that this energy can be realized is that, especially I look at that Jupiter energy, that healing energy coming in, is that this can be an energy that really helps us in our own lives to understand what it means to tap into our ambition with dedication and determination, to understand what's worth giving yourself to, what is a legacy worth creating, which is a big part of Capricorn energy. It's the legacy you create. What do you really want to be known for in the highest, biggest sense? Like, what is that to you? And where is it that you've really gone off that path? A lot of us are going to be having our own moments of truths, and those moments of truths are going to start happening with Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn, but they're only going to amplify as we get to the later part of this transit. Now, of course, the other part of this is this is also the Pluto return of the United States. So we can expect big things to be happening for friends and fans in the US. I know that for a long time, I've been on YouTube now for almost 10 years, and for a long time, 80% of my viewers were in the US. Now, as I feel like the internet has become more widely available and as view counts have gone up, thank you very much, subscriptions have gone up, it comes to 50-50. So it's like half of the people watching this right now, at least half of the people watching this, are in the United States. They are our siblings, our friends, our fans, our superstars or my superstars. They are very dear to this community of moving towards greater love and greater wisdom. And so, of course, we want to focus on all the great things that could be possible with this energy. At the same time, I look at this energy and I think, okay, there's a rebirth waiting to happen here. There's a sense of looking at where it is that there is darkness and where it is that that darkness needs to be healed. Now, again, this is going to be a very powerful journey, particularly for people who identify strongly with an American identity. But all of us as a collective are going to be going through these experiences as well within ourselves and as part of our spiritual path. Again, I want to emphasize, if you focus on the spiritual part of this energy, if you focus on the emotional part of this energy, if you focus on the potential there to resolve this on an energetic level, it doesn't have to create very dramatic shifts externally, right? Life doesn't need to get your attention in dramatic ways if you're already tuned in and if you're already paying attention. And so I would invite you to consider, as we now are beginning to start this new cycle, a very powerful cycle for us as a collective, where is it in your own life that you can harness the power of ambition, of dedication? Where is it that you need, or we need, a greater sense of the big picture rather than necessarily what feels good in this moment and what's happening right in front of us? Where is it that actually giving and being compassionate, right? These are higher spiritual qualities that so many spiritual masters, past, present, and future, have talked about and will talk about, how compassion is a selfish act. When we have compassion, we're actually giving to ourselves. I'll give you one example. I had somebody in my life recently who was being very frustrating. It happens, right? And I remembered one of my spiritual mentors that I reconnected with. She used to tell me, when that happens, just really feel a sense like you want the universe to send this person absolute love and compassion. Like, what would that feel like if you had so much love for this person? Like, what would it feel like if you were so frustrated with them that instead of being frustrated and being afraid or being whatever, you just sat down with yourself and you just focused on love? Like, I love you. Just say it again and again. I love you. I love you. Say that person's name. I love you. You know you hate this person, but how about if you just say that you love them, you know, and however it is that you need to frame that to connect with it more deeply in your spirit. What would it feel like to just really focus on sending them love? You know, it's amazing how it changes your energy, how it shifts something for you. So what would it be like if we as a collective decided to look at this energy, of Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter getting together in the sign of Capricorn? What would it feel like? What would it look like if instead we focused on the love? If we were adamant about love, right? Not adamant about what we were afraid of, not adamant about what we hate. Hate is addictive, right? Looking at someone and being like, oh my God, there's so many things I hate about you. And, you know, especially we look at this on a collective level. So many people are indulging in this energy right now where they're seeing things happen on a political level or with certain people, like public people, and they're indulging this energy of hate. And how is that actually helping you? How is that actually making your life better or the lives of the people around you? And how is that helping the collective? So here's the things you want to watch for. What is beginning in 2020 in your life, right? What new cycle is determined to start for you? But also to pay attention, like where in the world is there pain showing up? Where is it as a collective that we are seeing parts of the world? Because very likely we're going to see new areas in the world where maybe there wasn't before a demonstration of pain or of frustration. Where is that showing up for us as a collective, and what can we do to be a part of moving that energy towards greater love and greater wisdom? How can we actually do something about that? Sometimes it's a personal thing, right? Something in your own life that you do. Sometimes it's an energetic thing, how you are choosing to focus your energy. And sometimes there are more practical steps that can show up for you as well. But that's going to be really important to prevent the greater chaos that could come if we don't care right now, that could come in 14 years. It's important to pay attention to what is happening right now to the best of our ability in 2020 in particular. You know, I always end every video with saying what I love about this transit or what I love about this week or what I love about this next 3 years, right? And it's true, there's always something to love, I gotta say. And what I love about this transit is that we really are on the precipice of redefining success. This is a huge deal. What does success actually mean? What does it look like for you in your life? What does prosperity mean as well? We're going to talk a lot more about that when we get to the video about Uranus moving into the sign of Taurus. But what does that mean? And how does, especially in 2018, we're going to be looking at as a collective, how does success and prosperity line up for you? How are you set to redefine it for yourself in your own life? How is it now that you are going to evolve your understanding of what is a healthy ambition, what is not a healthy ambition, what's worth really being known for in a big way and what isn't? How are you now going to take what you have known before, but also make it your own? This can be a time when we are celebrating success as a collective, but of course the bigger successes will come when we get to the other side of this transit, once the transit is over. So as we have, and especially we're going to see this in January of 2018, the rewards of Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius are going to start to show up. So the sacrifices, the limitations, they're going to start to go away. And this is actually going to end up being a really beautiful thing. We're going to feel more like one world, which I'm a really big proponent of. As you know, I love to wander. I do love to wander. It's very hard for me to be in one place for a while. And so this idea of one world is going to start to show up more. By the time we get to January, in January, we have things happening that suggest reward moments coming for Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius. So what is that reward moment going to look like for you once we're on the other side of Saturn and Capricorn? What is that reward moment going to look like in terms of how you feel about how accomplished you are, how you feel about success, the success you've achieved, and how have you defined it for yourself? Where have you sacrificed and earned your own self-respect as a result of following up inspiration and thought with actual action, with actually doing the work? There's something very special that happens with Saturn. You know, Saturn ultimately, I think one of the higher spiritual lessons has to do with faith without works is dead. That is one of the higher understanding, and this understanding actually comes from a Renaissance astrologer and Catholic priest, Marcello Ficino, where he talked a lot about, you know, if I may, because he was a Catholic priest, but he, you know, described it as the Christ principle. And of course, every culture, every religion, every time and space has understood the planets in their own unique way, as your journey in astrology is going to help you to understand the stars in your own unique way as well, in light of your spiritual paradigm. He talked about how Saturn asks us for action. And if you don't use Saturn, the energy turns in on itself and it becomes depression. Now, he was somebody with a very strong Saturn in his own chart as well. So this was an energy he was very intimately connected with. And he was one of those people who sort of stands out in my mind as connecting faith and Saturn. That it, you know, you yourself, you are worthy, of course. You being who you are, you being a spiritual being, an expression of however you want to call it. You can call it greater love, greater wisdom. I like to call it love and wisdom. Some people call it love, some people call it God, some people call it divine. Whatever that energy is, you are that. You are an expression of that right here, right now. You know, sometimes I share this quote by Ibn Arabi. He had an essay. I actually did my dissertation on him, on Ibn Arabi, and you can read that on my website. It's called The Unity of Being, so you can read that there. But Ibn Arabi was, you know, hugely important when I was in graduate school, because I remember coming across his essay quite by accident. Like, I was in the library and it was a short little essay, and it was called "Whoso Knoweth Thyself." That was the name of the essay. And I remember I took the book out and I sat there and I read it cover to cover because it was really short. And it just felt like a spiritual experience reading this. And he had this quote in it where he said, "Every ache, every longing, every joy, every elation that your heart experiences is another way that God," as he called it, as he understood the energy, God knows itself in a way that it would not have had you not been there in that exact moment to experience that joy and that elation and that sorrow and that happiness. So I'm asking you now, as I look at the sky, you know, how is it that you are going to be an expression for an expansion of love and wisdom in this world? And how is it that you're going to use this energy as well? I hope that you can put a comment down, because I'd love to read what it is that you guys are thinking and hoping for with this energy. Like, where is it now that you are going to dedicate yourself to knowing, and this, what that journey is for you is going to show up. But here's the thing, going back to Marcello Ficino, right? When he talks about Saturn, it's like, it's one thing to know that you're a spiritual being. It's one thing to have all these emotions in your heart, which is a beautiful thing. But it's another thing to know that you did the work. It's another thing to know that you put in the time. There's a self-respect that comes when you have a plan and you see it through. And that is going to be part of the higher spiritual understanding of Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn. It's going to be about connecting to a self-respect that comes when you actually follow through on a plan. You're flexible enough to let it change as it asks to change, but at the same time, you follow through. You know, you do the work, you put in the time, you take the action. And there's something magical that can happen in 3 years, right? There's no magic pill, there is a magic process. Well, Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn is going to show us what our unique process is. Now, the sign of Capricorn, as much as I've focused on the external successes, remember, I focused also, and I keep saying, how you define it. Well, where does life purpose fit into that? Because the sign of Capricorn also has to do with life purpose. How do you define success in relation to life purpose? Because for some people, those are two different things, but where is it that it can become more integrated? And if you need to have that moment where you're able to integrate it, if you need to have that moment of truth where you realize like, oh my God, I've been pursuing success, but you know what? This isn't life purpose, and therefore it's not really success. Then Saturn in Capricorn, and especially in 2020 when that big party is happening, a very big important party happening in the sign of Capricorn, well, that is when the real breakthrough moment, the real understanding, and the beginning again, but being better, beginning better than you were ever before, can happen for us now. I'm truly really excited about this. I think we live in incredible times. We live in very special times as well. We live in a time where we get to see seed moments begin in our lives and in a collective as well. And hopefully we will plant good seeds, seeds of love and wisdom as well. Well, thank you so much for watching. Now stay tuned for the previews for each and every sign. So what I have done here is I have posted from Instagram. I actually took the Instagram video and have put it here. So you'll notice some weird borders. But now we're going to go through each and every sign. It is the first minute of the Saturn special horoscope that I have posted on my website, nadiyashah.com. You can go there, go to the shop, download it there. It's all available online. It's just $2.99 to download. So I hope that you enjoy the Saturn special very much. Thank you to all the people who've already purchased that. But the first minute is here. Now that has been on my Instagram. Are you following me on Instagram? I hope so, because I've been really enjoying expanding that, and you get to see a very different side of me than you see in my videos. You get to see me dancing in cars and singing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on the beaches and stuff. So I hope that you'll check that out. I've really loved the Instagram community. Thank you to those of you who are on Instagram with me. It's at Nadiya_Shah. There's lots of Nadiya Shahs. Most of those accounts are mine. I don't know how I ended up with so many Instagram accounts, but the one I use is Nadiya_Shah. And these videos, like I said, have been there already, but now here we are. We're going to look at each and every sign. The first minute of the expanded, much longer. I think the shortest video, they're each like 7 to 12 minutes when you download it on my website. So this is the first minute of each and every sign coming up right now. I send you very big bursts of gratitude. I send you very positive and blessing energy as well. I'm grateful that we get to share our sacred journeys together, but also keep in mind, I'm gonna be here. I ain't going anywhere. Like, I went through my own stuff in my chart enough to know that this is the path for me, and I absolutely love being online. I love being a part of YouTube, and so I will be here. And we will talk about it every step of the way as we move through Saturn and Capricorn and all the stuff happening in the sky. We will keep talking about it. We will stay connected, and I will be here to affirm and to remind and to celebrate a universe that is wise and loving. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great transit. Enjoy. Hello, fabulous superstar Aries. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering at the very end of 2017, going forward 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Well, Saturn will change signs at the very end of 2017 and move into the sign of Capricorn. Now, this is going to represent a change of focus and a change where the universe wants you to learn some of the most valuable lessons that very likely will stay with you for the rest of your life. Now, before we jump in there, let's reflect on what has been happening. Saturn's been moving through the sign of Sagittarius, fellow fire sign Sagittarius, and this has helped you to redefine your place in the world. Now, whether that redefinition has come about through things like long distance travel, immigration, citizenship, higher learning, legal matters, even political understandings and political matters as well. These have been very powerful areas of life that have been... Hello, fabulous superstar Taurus. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, looking at Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn, starting at the very end of 2017 for the better parts of the coming 3 years going forward from there. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is amazing. You are going to have Saturn move into fellow Earth sign Capricorn, making his energies that much easier for you to use to your advantage. It is a big transit with big changes, bigger than normal, of Saturn normally moving through a particular area of the sky. But before we jump in, let's reflect back on what has been happening. For the better part of the last 3 years, we've had Saturn moving through the sign of Sagittarius, and this for you has represented understanding resources, understanding the depths to which you are provided for. Now, when Saturn moves to this part of the sky, it helps you to get really clear about your emotions around. Hello, fabulous superstar Gemini. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering right at the very end of December 2017, when Saturn moves into the sign of Capricorn for the better part of the following 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing transit it is. Wherever Saturn goes, so go our most important lessons. Our most important learning shows up for us. And sometimes the learning isn't easy, but the rewards are there. Now, before I take you forward, let's look at the last 3 years. Saturn was moving through your opposite sign, and this really helped you to understand on a whole other level what relationships were about for you. Partnerships of all kinds were highlighted with this energy. Some of you really came to an understanding of the truth that is within you. Hello, fabulous superstar Cancer. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope. Looking at Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn, going from the very end of 2017 and forward 3 years, the better part of 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing time it is. Well, look, before I jump in to what's coming up for you with this huge and momentous and important move of Saturn changing signs, let's reflect a little bit on what has been happening over the last 3 years. We have had Saturn moving through a part of the sky that has to do with self-care as a spiritual practice. It has to do with honoring the day, whether that takes place in your work or that takes place in yourself, whether that is about the tasks that you're doing and how you approach it and the people who surround you as part of that, or it has to do with your healthcare practices and how you're using this. Hello, fabulous superstar Leo. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, looking at Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn from the very end of 2017 going forward 3 years, for the better part of 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. So before we jump into Saturn moving into the sign of Capricorn and what that means for you, let's reflect on what has been going on. For the last 3 years, Saturn has been moving through a part of the sky for you, moving through the sign of Sagittarius, which for you represents being in touch with your heart and the desires of your heart, and also being in touch with your creative energy. Now, for some of you, this is played out in terms of fertility and children that you want or children that you have. As Saturn changes signs, you're going to find all of that gets a lot easier. But also with this energy, it has to do with getting in touch with your own desires, your truest desires. Hello, fabulous superstar Virgo. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, looking at Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn from late 2017. Right at the end of 2017 is when Saturn will change signs, and for the better part of the next 3 years, you'll have Saturn moving into a new part of the sky. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. So before I jump in to what's coming up ahead, let's look at what has been happening. Over the course of the last 3 years, Saturn has been moving through the very bottom of your sky, helping you to understand home, helping you to understand the foundations of your life, and helping you to understand your relationships with your family of origin and your past in a whole new light. All of this has helped strengthen the ground on which you stand. So whether it is that you have found a new comfort, a new home within yourself, within your own skin. Hello, fabulous superstar Libra. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering late 2017 going forward for the better part of 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Well, before I jump into looking at Saturn moving through the sign of Capricorn and what that means for you, let's take a moment to reflect, shall we? Let's look at what's been happening over the last 3 years. You have had Saturn moving through a part of the sky for you that has to do with, among other things, siblings, cousins, neighbors. It has to do with communication and expression. And this has been a time of understanding more about what your voice is in the world and what it is not supposed to be. Understanding your relationships to these very people that I mentioned, and understanding healthy detachment as well. How to love these people without... Hello, fabulous superstar Scorpio. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope covering very end of 2017 and for the better part of 3 years going forward from there. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Well, before I jump into what's coming up ahead for Saturn, let's reflect on what has been happening. Saturn has been moving through a part of the sky for you that has to do with money you earn, money you spend, and it also has to do with a sense of self-worth and self-value, the value that you give to the energy that you're giving and how the universe is responding. So over the course of the last 3 years, you've been focusing a lot and understanding who it is that you are and what it is about yourself that you can value, that you can feel good about, that you can connect to. And yes, money lessons tend to be part of this energy as well, whether it feels a little bit harder to come by and you've got to work a little. Hello, fabulous superstar Sagittarius. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering the very end of 2017 and going forward for the better part of the next 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing transit it is and what an amazing time it is. Now, before we jump in to what it is that is coming up, let's reflect a little bit on what has been happening. Saturn's been moving through your sign. That is a big deal. When Saturn moves through your sign, it tends to be a very defining 3 years. And over the last 3 years, you have come to understand yourself more deeply, what you're committed to more deeply, and what you are willing to work for. Saturn moving through your sign does ask you to sacrifice for the big picture, but also to understand and get honest with yourself about who you really are. Hello, fabulous superstar Capricorn. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope. Starting late 2017, right at the end of 2017, for the better part of the next 3 years going forward, I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Well, before I jump in to what an incredible, important time it is for you coming up very soon, let's recap a little bit, because over the course of the better part of the last 3 years, you've had Saturn moving through the sign just before yours. Now, this is so valuable and so important because it really helps you to clear the way. It helps you to understand what's really going on inside of you. It helps you to act when needed on automatic, but it also helps you to bring closure to the past where you need it so that you can start fresh and fully understand and take ownership for your happiness. Hello, fabulous superstar Aquarius. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering late 2017 and the better part of the following 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. What an amazing time it is. Here we are. We are at a place where we're right on the verge of Saturn changing signs. Now, before I jump into what that is going to look like, let's reflect on what's been happening over the course of the last 3 years. You've had Saturn moving through a part of the sky for you that has to do with groups that you belong to and friendships. These have been some pretty serious parts of life. Sometimes it can feel like they ask a lot, but it's also the area of life where you earn your own self-respect. And so by showing up, by being present, by being involved with groups, by being involved in professional organizations, personal... Hello, fabulous superstar Pisces. Welcome to your Saturn special horoscope, covering the very end of 2017 and going forward the better part of the next 3 years. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Now, before I jump into what's coming up ahead, let's reflect a little bit. So let's look at the last 3 years. You've had Saturn moving through the very top of your sky. This tends to be a time of paying dues in some way, especially where it comes to understanding your life purpose, but also where it comes to career, sometimes where it comes to bosses as well. These particular connections, these particular relationships can be a little bit challenging under this cycle. So now what's going to happen is Saturn will leave this part of the sky, and you should notice some career blessings show up for you, some sense of living in alignment with your life purpose feeling that much easier. See,